All right, so it's been a few hours now since John Jones captured the heavyweight title. And of course, the narrative has changed like it always does. At one point it was, the man is washed. The only reason he was able to win fights was because of his size. The one time he fought a guy that was his size, he almost lost. He's moving up to the heavyweight division now. He's about to fight the greatest heavyweight mover in the whole entire world. He's not going to be able to hang with him. Cyril Gane is too good. It's not going to go well. And now the narrative has changed, and it's, oh, well, Cyril Gane was 1-1 in his last fight anyways. He was always going to lose to John Jones. It's always interesting how that happens in the world of MMA. Oh, you're as good as your last fight. But the fact of the matter is, man, John Jones has always been good, and Cyril Gane is still good. None of that has changed. Just because John Jones did what he did to Cyril Gane, it doesn't change how good that man is. It is still the same guy that did all those impressive things that you guys were talking about in the past. All the beautiful movement, the beautiful striking, the speed, the uniqueness. It is still the same man. It hasn't changed. The same exact way it was the same man than John Jones that did all the incredible things he did in his early light heavyweight run. Now he's in a brand new chapter of his career, and it looks like he's in a better place, And what he showed yesterday just demonstrates the level of talent that we're dealing with. It genuinely does. So let's talk about a few things with the fight. Going in, the questions were mostly around John Jones, right? As I said before, we know a lot about Cyril Gane in the heavyweight division because he's fought in the heavyweight division. We know how Cyril Gane moves in the heavyweight division. We know what his cardio is like. We know what his speed is like. We know what his striking is like. We know what his grappling is like in the heavyweight division. We have all these informations about Cyril Gane in the heavyweight division. Meanwhile, with John Jones, everything we know about John Jones is from the light heavyweight division. How strong is he? Well, we could only compare it to light heavyweights. How fast is he? How good is his striking? Every information we had about John was from the light heavyweight division. And so him moving up to the heavyweight division, we had nothing. We just had a bunch of questions. The only attribute that we could say that we were sure of was John Jones' strength, only because it just makes sense logically that if you're strong at a specific weight, you're only going to get stronger if you gain more weight. That's just logical. But in terms of John Jones' cardio, in terms of John's speed, in terms of how his actual skill from the light heavyweight division, how will his mixed martial arts skills translate to heavyweight, we knew nothing. We genuinely knew nothing. And so going in, there was a lot of worries, right? A lot of worries was this man's going to gas out. People saw his physique, which is always interesting. It's like no matter how long people have watched mixed martial arts, or maybe I'm discrediting the hardcore fans a little bit too much. Maybe this narrative was coming from more newer fans of MMA because, of course, every day new fans enter the octagon. I mean, not enter the octagon, but enter the world of MMA. But it's always fascinating for me to see when a fighter shows up and he's not ripped and chiseled with six-pack abs popping out and veins upon veins. Everybody immediately goes, oh my God, he's soft. He's going to gas out. It's like, it generally is the other way around, guys. It really is. And if you've been around MMA long enough, you're going to know that some of the worst conditioned fighters historically have been fighters who carry around too much muscle. Like being muscular is not a guarantee that you're in good shape. It really is. Of course, if you're lean, right? If you're lean and you're shredded, that's a different thing. There are a lot of lean fighters who, because they're lean, their leanness is an indication of how much work they put into camp. But when you're moving up to the heavyweight division and you're trying to pack on, you're trying to gain weight, and you're trying to gain weight correctly, and you're not using performance-enhancing drugs to try to cut corners, you're going to, even if you gain muscle, you're still going to gain fat on top of that. Like, no one is just going to gain 30 pounds of muscle with no added fat on top of that. Like, that's just not a thing that happens naturally. And so when John Jones showed up and took his shirt off and, people were looking at him, they were like, oh, my God, Dude, there were freaking comments on Twitter, hilarious comments on Twitter talking about John Jones gassed out in the little clip of him grappling with Bo Nickel. Did you guys see that? John had a little tussle with Bo Nickel where they were just like playing around. And people were like, yo, John was breathing so heavy. I'm reading that like, dude, you guys are reading into this a bit too much, man. Especially because this is a man that has prided himself for years on being well conditioned. His fight style demands that he has to be in good condition. He's a man who, although he doesn't throw a lot of combinations with his strikes, the pacing of his strikes, he puts out a lot of output, with his strikes. And he's also grapple heavy at times. He's a guy that has to be in good conditioning. Also, because for years now, I mean, when's the last time John Jones fought a 3-round fight? Seriously. When's the last time John Jones fought a fight that was 3 rounds? A vast majority of his fights, 5 rounds. So he has to be in good shape. And he's prided himself on being in good shape. And so I personally just did not buy that John was going to accept this fight in less than stellar conditioning. He wasn't going to walk into that octagon and gas out in a minute or gas out in the first round. It just wasn't going to be a thing. So I wasn't really worried about that. And we also have a bunch of examples of really well-conditioned athletes who looked like John Jones. Guys like Cain Velasquez weren't exactly walking around looking like superheroes. DC at heavyweight had good conditioning. He wasn't walking around looking like superheroes. There's been a lot of guys that you look at them and they don't look like they should have good conditioning because they're soft or whatever, but they do. So that really wasn't a worry that I had. Of course, second worry was that John was going to walk into the octagon and the power would be too much, right? John does get hit. He doesn't always get hit clean, but people have seen John Jones get hit, especially in his last fight. And so people just, in the mind you go, dude, if Dominic Reyes was able to touch up John Jones so much, what is a heavyweight going to do? Especially a heavyweight like Ciryl Gane, who this is what he does. This movement, the striking, this is what he does. What is he going to do to John, right? That was a big thing. And he wasn't touched, man. He wasn't touched. He wasn't touched. And then the other narrative was John Jones had some serious issues getting down his last few opponents in the light heavyweight division. It's I understand why there's a lot of confusion. A lot of what happened yesterday really doesn't make sense if you just think about it surface level. To be honest with you guys, right? Because yes, John Jones had issues taking down Dominic Reyes. Yes, John Jones had issues taking down Anthony Smith. And so it would make sense to assume if he's having trouble taking down guys in a lower weight class, why would it be easier to take down a heavyweight? That's what your natural thought process is going to be. But guys, man, when it comes to grappling, a vast majority of what makes grappling difficult, I'll put it this way. When you listen to some of the greatest grapplers in the world, right? I always like using Gordon Ryan as an example. But Gordon has said multiple times that heavyweights are easier for him to grapple with than lighter weights. And you hear that and you go, that doesn't make any fucking sense. Why? They're heavier. Well, the reason why it's easier to grapple heavyweights is because they don't move as much, man. One of the hardest things you're going to deal with when you're trying to grapple somebody is someone that's moving constantly. If you're trying to pass somebody's guard and they're constantly throwing legs up, they're inverting, they're moving all over the place, it is very difficult to deal with that. But you get a heavyweight on the ground and they're so lax and they're barely moving. Those guys are very easy to deal with. Another thing, you get a heavyweight, you apply some Kazushi to a heavyweight, you get him off balance, you force him to balance, and bro, they fall over, man. You need a lot of, their own weight fights against them. I've seen this, man. I've seen this. I've experienced this. You pick up a heavyweight's leg, like a big ball. You pick up his legs and you move him a little bit, and he'll collapse under his own weight. And so, the fact that John had issues taking down Dominic Reyes had so much more to do with Dominic Reyes than it had to do with John. It had to do with Dominic Reyes having a whole lot of hustle, with Dominic Reyes just refusing to give up takedowns. John would lock his hands around Dominic Reyes, and Dom is immediately fighting grips. John will break him down to a knee, and he's immediately popping up. John would like take him down completely, and he's not accepting it. He's not trying to do jiu-jitsu. He's immediately going turtle, trying to get back up to his feet. That sort of mentality when you're wrestling, when you're grappling, makes grappling you very, very difficult. I think for a vast majority of people, if you go back and watch the way Alexander Volkanovski handled Islam Makhachev, that's how you handle a grappler, man. Volkanovski did not stop moving. And even though he was in there with a better grappler, someone that should have been able to hold him down, again, he's coming from a lower weight class. Islam is bigger. Islam is the better grappler. Islam is supposed to be able to hold it. Why wasn't he able to hold down Volkanovski? Because Volkanovski did not stop moving, man. Volkanovski did not accept it for a second. And that's the thing. That's what I've personally learned grappling with fucking wrestlers. If they take you down and for a moment you even accept, dude, they advance position on you. It gets tighter. It gets worse. Next thing, you're flattened out. And it just gets worse and worse and worse. Your first line of defense when you're dealing with a wrestler is the moment you hit the mat. The moment you hit the mat, you almost have to act like the mat is a fucking trampoline. You got to hit that shit and you got to bounce off of it and you got to try to get back up. And that is one of the reasons why John had issues grappling Dominic Reyes. Like, people say Dominic Reyes and it's like, he was this bum or whatever. John could barely beat him. Why would he beat Ciryl Gane? Well, look at the skill displayed in the matches. Dominic Reyes did a lot of good things. He did a lot of good shit. And that's why it was hard. And I personally knew, I said it multiple times in my fighter showcases, go back and watch it. Where Ciryl Gane is going to have issues is that he doesn't have the same hustle. And the moment Jon Jones got him down, he did exactly what he did against Francis Ngannou. Francis pinned this man against the cage, and he started going for a Kimura. At one point, Francis had him down, and he was looking for a guillotine. Like, this is not what unless your jiu-jitsu is fucking cream of the crop in MMA, you got to try to get back up, man. And so when John got him down, he just didn't have the hustle to get back up. He didn't have the sense of urgency to get back up, which allowed Jon Jones to advance position, break him down, lock his hands up, take him down again, sit him on his butt. When John sat him on his butt, as soon as John scooped the legs and sat him on his butt, his back was against the cage, right? If that was Dominic Reyes, if the moment John would have sat him down, Dom would have popped right back up immediately. But when John sat down Ciryl Gane, Ciryl started going for a guillotine, which didn't allow Jon Jones to get up and stand over him. And that's how he got stuck in that position. Go watch it. That's how he got stuck in that position where John, and then when he was stuck, then he was like, oh shit, it's too late now. Now I better start moving. But bro, it's already too late. Then he tries to start to move, and John wraps his arm around his neck and freaking chokes this dude out. It was fantastic. It was fantastic. And I think every other heavyweight might have the same problem with John. They're just too slow moving, especially when grappling begins. They're just too slow. They don't have the sort of sense of urgency that you need. Even Stipe. Go watch the last fight between Stipe and DC. DC in the first round took down Stipe Miocic, and what did Stipe do? Stipe laid on his back, locked his legs around Daniel Cormier in close guard, and Daniel spent the rest of the first round comfortably grounding and pounding Stipe Miocic. Stipe barely tried to stand back up. He can't do that with John. He can't do that with Jon. He can't accept bottom. Like, this is not the days of Vitor Belfort, man. Like, MMA has evolved way past that. Fighters are getting up, you know? And I think this is the problem that in his next fight with Stipe, it's a problem that Stipe might also have, unfortunately. Unless they do their homework and honestly work tirelessly to not make that mistake. In terms of striking, I thought Jon Jones, oddly, I thought his boxing looked better than his kicks, which is like, it's generally the other way around. Usually, it's Jon Jones's kicks that looks a lot better than his boxing, but his kicks looked a bit sloppy. There was a point in round number 1 where he went to throw a rear body hook and he whiffed really badly, which also looked pretty awkward. But besides that, he was able to tag Ciryl Gane in like 30 seconds of the first round. Ciryl Gane threw a leg kick. Jon Jones caught it, fired off a cross down the pipe, caught him clean. It was like, dude, not only that, one more thing I noticed, and then I'm going to let you guys go because I've been talking for too long. One more thing that I noticed about the striking is that Jon seems to have reduced the amount of times he's doing that. You guys know this? This shit that Jon, I think they've corrected that. I think they've corrected that. I'm serious. Because in the fight, generally when you attack Jon Jones, that's the first thing. He goes here. His hands pokes out. How he pokes people in the eye. He fucking retreats like that. And that's not going to work against these heavyweights. But the few times that Ciryl Gane threw jabs at him, Jon was here. He was parrying it. Like, Jon Jones is parrying jabs now. Jon Jones is now here. Jon is no longer doing this. He's parrying jabs. And then when Ciryl Gane threw the long cross, usually that's the sort of shot that makes Jon Jones go, But Jon didn't. Ciryl threw the cross and Jon slipped it. It was a perfect slip. Slipped it, locked the body lock, and got his back. I'm like, dude, his defense has gotten better. It really has. It really has. 3 years off, there was some development. There was some development. His boxing was better. His timing looked okay, and his defense is better. And seriously, last point. Not just that. Jon Jones came out. I was mentioning this in my stream yesterday. Jon Jones came out to the fight sweating, which is a good thing. It's a good thing. It means you're warmed up. And Jon, I don't think Jon used to do that. Jon usually would take the first round to warm up and whatever. But he didn't come out cold. He came out sweating already, which meant that he already got a really, really solid warm up in the back, and he was ready to go. The moment the ref said go, he was ready to go. He didn't need the first round to warm himself up. And I think that's probably some of his interactions with Henry Cejudo. Henry Cejudo being a seasoned competitor. I think the people he has surrounding him right now are really teaching him how to be a professional. And we might see a way more dominant version of Jon Jones going forward if he keeps this up, you know? Hopefully that man is back in Albuquerque right now, and he's not partying and drinking and ruining everything that he just did. Hopefully he goes right back home and he goes right back to work. That's what I'm hoping for. Fingers crossed, man. Fingers crossed. But yeah, I'm gonna leave it at that. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know in the comment section what you guys thought about the fight. How do you think the fight went? And what do you think is going to be next for Jon Jones? Do you think he's going to be able to keep up this dominance? Or do you think we're probably going to see one more down? I hope so. I hope not. I hope not. I really, really hope not. But yeah, thanks for watching again, guys. You guys rock. I'll see you guys later. Peace out. Have a good one.